Hi everyone, it's Kirbyfan, that's right, the Kirbyfan. And today I'm going to be doing a mini gush sequence on The Incredibles all by myself. We did briefly go over in The Incredibles actual full podcast episode. If you haven't watched it, go and watch that first. There's going to be a bit of context in that video, namely the fact that The Incredibles is my favorite of all the Pixar movies, which is the reason why I'm doing it solo. There also will be things that I'm not going to cover in this because I did cover in that one. I'm not entirely sure. I'm probably going to repeat info, but that's okay. It's like I said, this is just kind of a gush sequence. I'm not going to have too much of a order of things to kind of go through. It's just going to be me talking about why I think the movie is so good. So first things first, I love the music. We did not really get much of a chance to talk about it in the episode. Wash got to gush a bit towards the end, but I didn't really get my piece on it. But I thought it was really fitting for the movie, and it was catchy, and I remember it, even though it's one of those things where even though I'm not watching the movie, I could think about what kind of music it is, down to the style, the composition. If I were to hum it, I'd remember it, and all that stuff. And something that Wash had said in the episode, that Brad Bird had said, something along the lines of, they didn't just want it to sound like a James Bond movie. They didn't want it to just sound like a superhero movie. That's where the inspiration came from, but they just wanted it to sound like good music, and you could totally tell. The music in the movie is brilliant. From an animation perspective, this is one of the most important animated movies, actually. This is the first one which pretty much across the board people agreed looked good. As far as humans were concerned, this was the first time humans really they hit the nail on the head with it. You look at other animated CG movies at the time that had human characters in it. Obviously, the first to come to mind is Toy Story. You look at Andy, Andy's mom, the drivers, Owl. Just generally, you look at everybody. They don't look good. They look bad. Nothing against those movies, but the humans just did not look good in them. And I'm not thinking of any specific animated movies otherwise, although there were humans and they did not look good, and there were humans in CG before Toy Story 1 came out. I'm not saying Toy Story was the first CG thing to exist, but even in regards to that, humans never really looked good in CG, kind of period. So The Incredibles to pretty much be the first thing to get a large bit of humans, because, The Incredibles wasn't the first movie that had good-looking people in it. Here and there, it happened. There were good-looking humans, but The Incredibles really was the first one to focus on the humans and have them all look good. All the humans in The Incredibles look good. None of them look bad. At the bare minimum, they all look good enough. And when they look really great, when they have striking design, like the Incredible Family, Frozone, Syndrome, a lot of the side characters, they all look so good. And for this to be the first one of its kind, the first movie to have a lot of human characters in it, and to have them all look good, it's a miracle that they looked this good. Brad Bird and the team really pushed a lot of boundaries with how humans looked. And things that interacted with them. They had water. That's not an easy thing to make look good in CG. Finding Nemo had a lot of hard work to do with making the water look good, and it's difficult. But it worked. Finding Nemo made the water look good. The Incredibles made water on human hair look good. It made humans interacting with stuff look good. Human eyes getting, big because they're surprised at something. Looks very cartoony, very 2D. But it works with the context of CG because there was time and care put into it to make it look good with CG, even though a lot of this stuff is techniques that you'd find in 2D. I'm no expert on it, but there was you could see, even if you're only casually into this kind of thing, you can see the effort that was put into it to really make it look good. And even beyond the humans, if we're just talking about, the look of the movie, the lighting in the movie is really good. There's a lot of subtlety to the lighting. In a scene where Bob and Helen are arguing with each other, the lighting will be very dark. There will pretty much be one source of light, so you can see what they're doing, but the room is dark because the mood is dark. When Bob's working at his job that he hates, all the colors there's a lot of gray, a lot of lifeless colors because he's working a lifeless job. He wants to help people, but he can't. It's lifeless. For something, the island, thinking about the island when Bob goes there as Mr. Incredible to get back into superhero work for the first time, it's a very bright island, even with the shades, which kind of makes everything look darker, kind of implying that maybe there's a little more to the island than meets the eye. These are still, bright looking colors. Man, this movie's good. So much to talk about. This is just the animation. I'm not even talking about the human characters anymore. I'm just talking about the actual lighting in the movie. I must give mention to this. I don't think we talked about it too much. We mentioned Helen's actress, incredible, but the voice acting in the movie, top notch. As I was thinking about how I just said Helen was the only one who went over, I remember I brought up Samuel L. Jackson. He's really funny. He kills it as Frozone. But even beyond Samuel L. Jackson, just looking at the acting for everybody, they all get it done really well. Syndrome, the actor for Syndrome, makes him sound like a nerdy child. Even as an adult, he's still a nerdy child. Violet, Dash, Bob, random police officers, the old lady at the beginning of the movie, they all just sound like they should. Everybody sounds like they should, and that's important. Because I can think of instances where the acting could be great, the voice could be great, everything could work, but it doesn't fit the character that it's supposed to be. Therefore, I can't really think of a Pixar example because they don't usually have this problem. But I'm sure outside of Pixar, you could think of at least one example. It's pretty unfortunately common, I want to say. Everybody in The Incredibles sounds like they should, and that's important to me. To touch up on the story real quick, we talked about the story a lot in the podcast, the actual Incredibles podcast, so I don't want to go really too much into it as far as the detail and stuff goes, but it's a very human story because it's a story about superheroes going through superhero crises and stuff, but it's not the superhero crisis of there's a big bad, you have to save the day, or even you're a superhero, what does that mean, blah, 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 blah. Nothing, not to say that there's anything wrong with those stories, and in the last act of the movie, there's a whole lot of action because there's a big bad guy there, and it's incredible, but the movie is about an adult man, a middle-aged man having a midlife crisis. That is what you can compare it to, and that's really relatable for older people watching the movie. Something I really like about The Incredibles, I'm not here to knock kids movies. I'm the last person who will knock kids movies, but it is kind of nice to see a movie about human adults going through adult problems with quips from the kids and stuff. The kids are there, they have their own things to go through, and what the development for Violet and Dash they get great development, but what Bob has to go through, even what Helen has to go through. I feel like Helen had more to go through in the movie than Violet and Dash. But especially Bob is the one that I want to focus on. What Bob's development was, his midlife crisis to being able to be a superhero, losing his family, not wanting to lose the things that matter the most to him, because as he says in the end of the movie, he's not strong enough for that. It's very adult. It's not adult because you're seeing it through the lens of a toy or a monster or a fish. It's adult because you're seeing it through the lens of a human. There is no mix-match placing. Isn't it funny that a toy is going through this? Woody wanting to stay around for Andy in Toy Story 2, but realizing that Andy's going to grow up one day. Oh, you could compare that to a kid growing up. Your own kid, and you can't be there for them as much as you want to. That's a very adult message. But you're still seeing it through the lens of a toy, you know what I mean? It's not an actual adult watching their child grow saying, I wish I could see my child grow, just as an example. I'm not even really saying it's a flaw with Toy Story 2 either, but just, it's nice having human beings going through human being problems. There's no filter in the way, is what I'm trying to say. It's not so much a flaw with the other movies, but it's a major strength of The Incredibles. I just remembered I said I was going to brush over the story real quick, and I just finished talking about the story. Well, okay, so before I get into the main characters, I was actually just about to jump right into them, but I remembered something really funny. There's this great joke towards the end of the movie. Syndrome comes up because he's starting his plan to be the one that saves the day from the evil robot or whatever. And I don't remember who the superhero was. Like Flyman. I know it's not Flyman, but I'm just going to say that's what it is. Somebody looks at him and goes, "Hey, it's a superhero. Is that Flyman?" And then this random chick in the room, she's just there, gives the person who said that the dirtiest look, and she's just like, "No, he wears different clothing. That's not him." I love that even after there was a ban on superheroes, there is still, even in normal society, there is still people that are just so nerdy about this stuff. These are normal functioning human beings. They're not like Syndrome, who was a super fan to the extreme. This is just a normal person. She probably has, a normal job, has family, kids and stuff, and she's just, no, you got the wrong superhero. I love this movie. But if we're going to talk about why I truly love the movie, it would be the family, Frozone, Edna. It's the first time I've mentioned, somehow this is the first time I've mentioned Edna throughout this whole thing. That's something. But Edna, Frozone, the family, Syndrome, just the characters in the movie, they work so well. I'll start with Edna just because we did go over Edna a lot in the podcast, and I don't want to repeat too much. I feel like I said everything I wanted to say about her in the main episode. Again, go watch it if you like hearing me talk about The Incredibles and you want to hear me talk about it some more than random got to do. I'm sorry. But Edna is just great character. Every time she's on screen, she steals the show. She has such a commanding presence in every scene that she's in. She's funny. I don't know how else to put it. They gave her great dialogue to work with, and she worked. She's not too obnoxious. You know why she's in the position. You know why she's so good at making outfits for superheroes. You see the stuff that she can make, but even then, she still has this attitude, and you know that if you knew somebody like this, you'd hate them, but because you get to see other people deal with it, she's funny, and she's good at what she does. So not only is she funny, but you want to see her you want to know what she's going to do next. And I love characters like that. But if we're going to talk about who my favorite side character was, like I said in the episode, the best side character, any Pixar movie, free, Frozone. So well acted, charming, funny. He's a part of the family. I love when they're having the fight at the dinner table. They hear a knock on the door. They all try to act like everything's normal. And then when Frozone walks in, they're all relieved. It's not some random person. It's someone they know they could use their superpowers around. His superpower, Frozone's power, has a limitation that he can't use it when he's dehydrated. Because this whole thing is making ice. And if he doesn't have enough water in him, that can't produce the ice. I really like that. Not so much that this is a complaint that I have with the movie. But I do kind of wish that a lot of the other superheroes kind of had a limitation on their powers like he did. Helen seems to be able to just stretch as far as she wants. Bob can be as strong as he wants. Dash can go as fast as he wants when she learns how. Violet can make a force field kind of to go anywhere, make it as big as she wants. And having Frozone have a power with a limitation really just, it makes the power a lot more interesting. But the man behind the mask is still one of the funniest parts of the movie. And I love that he was there enough. I don't think he was there for too long. He had the funniest scene in the movie. I talk about Edna a lot, and that really funny scene that I just brought up with the random lady critiquing people who don't know superheroes. But the funniest part of the movie, I think, as everybody knows, is when Frozone is looking for his super suit, and he's having the argument with his wife, and it's just so funny. The movie's hysterical. The writing in the movie, super good. So human. I know I brought up before that I really liked that this was a movie about humans, but the writing in the movie really helps send that point home. It's such human writing. Bob interfacing with his boss, having an argument with Helen, Frozone having an argument with his wife, argument at a dinner table, talking to a fashion designer like Edna. It's real. I feel like these are conversations people would have. And there's again, I don't mean to bring this up as a negative, but there's no connotation, no filter of, you are a toy, you can't fly. It's not that. It's, you gotta be there for your son. It's things like that. There's no, I love this movie. This really is just a gush session. There have been things that I said I was going to get to that I haven't gotten to yet. Things I said I was going to talk about super quick and I've just went off on completely random tangents on. But, I love this movie. The movie's good! So finally, to wrap it up, I'll go over the family real quick. Bob, Helen, Dash, and Violet, and Jack. We didn't talk about Jack a lot. I'll bring him up real quick. For a baby that's just kind of there to be a baby, I thought he was fine. Nothing Jack really did in the movie kind of stood out to me. I'm not going to bring up Incredibles. I know he has a much larger role in Incredibles 2, but this is about the first movie. The Incredibles 2 was not out at the time. So when we get to Incredibles 2, I'll talk more about him in that movie. But as for the first movie, fine. Dash, of the family that actually did a lot in the movie, Dash was probably my least favorite of the four, but I don't know. It's more like the one who amazed me the least. The one who I just had the least amount of attachment to. He was still great. He had a lot of funny lines. I like how cocky he is. Towards the beginning of the movie, you might not really think much of it, but, you know, when they get later on in the movie and there's the full scene of Dash running away from Syndrome's subordinates or whatever they are, the terrible security guards. The security guards are terrible, and it's great, but his security guards chasing after him. A lot of creative stuff. Dash kind of being, you know, a fun, what a kid would do in that situation. Imagine you have a 10-year-old boy playing a game, and he's talking about all the stuff that he would do. That's exactly what Dash would do. And it's well choreographed, and it's funny. I like his development a lot. It's not so much that it's not present a lot in the movie, it's just the growth of Dash is a lot more subtle. With Violet's development, I'll get on her, but with Violet's development, there's a lot of literal symbolism for it. Dash, there's not as much of that. It's mostly just that because he's put in because he's put in the situation that he's put in, he kind of grows up. To the point where at the end of the movie, again, one of the fun, I might have said it in the podcast, that was the funniest part of the movie at the end when Dash was in the race and his family's yelling at him to go second, and the people in the stands are looking at them like they're crazy. That might have been the funniest part of the movie that I said in the podcast, but I don't know. The funniest part of the movie changes for me on a dime. There's so many funny moments. But Dash definitely goes through a development, and it's very good. I prefer Violet's development, and I prefer the kind of character that we see from Violet. Kind of the shy, not very confident in herself character. She's willing to say much more around people that she's comfortable with. Again, if we're going to bring up early movie, the argument that they had on the dinner table, Violet says a lot more to Dash at that point in the movie than she says to pretty much anyone else until the end. If she has the choice, she kind of prefers to avoid being around people because she's kind of afraid to be around other people because she doesn't have the confidence in herself. But there are a lot of points in the movie where Violet is pushed and she is both told and feels that she has to do more. She has to believe in herself, and she does. And there's literal symbolism there with, as we brought up in the podcast, with putting her hair back so you can see both of her eyes. Such a good character. I really like Violet. I really like the character that doesn't really start out confident, but grows into it. She grows into a role of just being this confident, really, really cool girl, and I love it. Helen, great character. Really, really. So the idea of having a superhero that can stretch, not that interesting, but the places that Helen goes with it and the things that they do with her are really clever. Helen becoming a boat. She stretches her body so that she can become a boat when they first get on the island. And she has Dash run to kind of act as a propeller. I really like stuff like that. But even beyond her superpower being interesting, just, man, so much to say about Helen. How in the beginning of the movie, she's the one that didn't want to stop being a superhero. She didn't want to, this was the best time of her life. She didn't want to let it go. But then came a time where she had to let it go, and she was okay with that. It's not so much a direct opposite of Bob, because as we find out, she was not actually okay with getting rid of it. She wanted to keep being a superhero, but the law told her no, and she abided by the law. It's not like Bob, who didn't care about the law. He just wanted to help people. Helen understood that there was this system, the checks and balances and stuff, things that you had to do as a superhero, and when the world told you don't be a superhero, she accepted it. He didn't. It's a great contrast between the two. And the chemistry that she has with Bob, her husband, I see why these two are married. I see why they could have arguments with each other, and I could see why they might not get along at points, but I totally get why they're in love. It's not something that just comes up at the end of the movie that all of a sudden, oh, that's why they're married. I could see it from the very beginning. It's just frustrating for both of them because Bob works a dead-end job, doing something that he hates, being forbid to do something that he really likes. Well, Helen kind of has to be the one to tell him that you can't do it, even though she's the one who also wants to do it. Almost as if when she's yelling at Bob not to do superhero stuff, she's kind of telling herself, too, that they kind of have to live a normal life. She's okay with doing it for the family, for kids and stuff, but in general, she still wants to do it. When she's on the plane and she sees the outfit that Edna made for her, she wants to put it on. She wants to be Elastigirl again, not just Helen Parr. Oh my! Oh God! Good movie. Good movie. And I think I said most of what I wanted to say about Bob, both when talking about Helen and in the podcast. I'll go over Bob quick, and maybe it'll be quick this time. But what I love how relatable of a character Bob is. He wants to do great. He just wants to help people. His job is advertised as a place that helps people, but really the company itself does not want to help people, and Bob is trying to help people, and his boss hates that, and his boss is hilarious. Oh my God, there are so many minor characters in this movie that are funny. This is the best movie. Oh my God. Ah. God. I love it. I don't want to just repeat information for the sake of repeating information. I don't want The Incredibles to be that thing for me, because I love it so much. So I think I'm just gonna stop here. Overall, I know I barely talked about Bob, but like I said, I just really don't want to repeat information. I love the movie. It's good. It's innovative. It's funny. I really don't know what else I could say about it. I practically talked about it for 70 minutes the other day, and now I just added however much time I got here. Probably going to be about 20 minutes. I've talked about the movie for about an hour and a half, just basically. When I watched the movie, I was just having such a fun time writing down the notes. It took me 2.5 hours to watch a movie that's not even an hour and a half. Every time I watch it, I get really into it, and there's something about the movie that hits me in a way that no other movie really does. And watching a lot of the other Pixar movies up to now, and I'm assuming this is going to be a trend, because for the last 3 movies, I guess 4, because The Incredibles also kind of counted, for the last 4 movies that I watched, they were all better than I remembered them being. This included The Incredibles somehow. So, yeah, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, all better. And I'm assuming that this is going to be a trend going forward, that a lot of them are better than I remember them being, but they still, excluding The Incredibles on this one, none of them hit me in the way that The Incredibles does. It's a lot of what I like in media, in a movie. And in fairness, I know I go on saying a lot that this is my favorite movie of all time, not just Pixar, and it is, but movies aren't really my forte. I don't care about movies as much as I care about games and cartoons, Western cartoons and anime. Even not music, like song music, but even just talking about background music, I have a huge fascination with that stuff. So movies aren't really my thing for the most part, which is why a lot of Pixar movies I rank among my all-time favorites, not because, I don't think there's anything better, it's just because I'm not a movie person. I'm a game person. I'm a cartoon person. I'm an anime person. I'm a music person. I'm not so much a movie one. But The Incredibles is one of the very few movies that really breaks that mold and makes me think, I really want to watch more movies. And I think that's the best kind of movie. is a movie where you just want to go watch other movies to see if you could recreate that feeling of wonder that you watched, that you felt watching a movie. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is, The Incredibles is good, go watch it. Thank you for listening to this. I know this was really just me rambling, but it felt really good getting all of this out. There's definitely an appeal to just gushing about something than talking into it with other people. I love Wash and I love Random, but when I really want to say something, but I also understand that I'm in a podcast and I have to talk to them. For all the other movies in the past and going forward, absolutely fine. But when I was just so excited to talk about The Incredibles, that's all I gotta say about that. I'm not saying I thought the episode was bad or anything, just I'm glad I got to do this. I'm glad I got to gush about it, got to just blurt it all out. But that's pretty much all I got. This has been Kirbyfan again. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, you could leave a comment, like it, and even subscribe. It would be great if you did that. I'm not very good at outros, so I'm just gonna give the generic one again. This has been Kirbyfan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Pixarspective episode. Goodbye. Incredibles is good.